What's up, everybody? Welcome back to our Kratom Addiction and Recovery Daily Devotional series. So we're in Exodus chapter 32, and we are getting into idolatry and what that means and how to overcome it in our addictions and in our lives. So today we're going to be reading from this book, Redemption by Mike Wilkerson. And this is a really cool book that goes into Exodus and idolatry on a really deep level. And so we're going to start reading today, and then we're going to talk for a second afterwards. How can sin be overcome and peace restored? To answer that question is to define redemption. And no Christian should be surprised by the biblical answer. Jesus himself is our redemption. Redemption is not a series of steps we practice or rules we follow. It is not the forced motions of religious practice. No human effort can accomplish redemption for oneself or for anyone else. We need a redeemer. Just as God's story is not ultimately about you but about God, so also redemption comes not from you but from God. God's story is about redemption, but more specifically, it is about a redeemer. Jesus is the main character of the story, and his life and work are the center of the plot. For some, hearing the words, Jesus is your redemption, rings a bell and piques curiosity. Tell me more. For others, the same words seem hollow. They may have heard them 1,000 times in sermons and Sunday school, but when real evil overwhelms, it just doesn't seem to work. At that point, they tend to move in one of two directions. They either pay lip service and pretend it's working to keep fitting in at church, or grow cynical and leave. Either way, their hearts go in search for other solutions. This is tragic because it means they stray from their true hope at just the time when they need it most. How is it that we can hear the words that define hope and yet not hear the hope they offer? I think it's particularly due to lack of context. You can hear the climax of God's story, Jesus is your redemption, but a climax without context just doesn't pop. Consider the movie The Return of the King, based on J.R.R. Tolkien's book by the same title. Imagine you knew nothing of the story and all you saw was a clip of some hobbits clawing their way up a volcano to destroy a gold ring in its fire. A friend tells you that this is the part where they save the whole world, and you're thinking, what does a gold ring have to do with the fate of the world? Well, it's all in the back of the story. If you knew the story, you'd be on the edge of your seat. When it comes to understanding redemption, the key backstory in the Bible is in Exodus. Exodus is God's model of redemption. When the New Testament authors wrote about Jesus as our redemption, the Old Testament story they had in mind was Exodus, the prototype of redemption. Christopher J.H. Wright says, if you had asked a devout Israelite in the Old Testament period, are you redeemed? The answer would have been a most definite yes. And if you had asked, how do you know? You would be taken aside to sit down somewhere while your friend recounted a long and exciting story, the story of Exodus. For indeed, it is Exodus that provided the primary model of God's idea of redemption, not just in the Old Testament, but even in the New Testament, where it is used as one of the keys to understanding the meaning of the cross of Christ. Exodus is more than one story of redemption. It also points to the larger story of redemption. Wright also says, Exodus points beyond itself to a greater need for deliverance from the totality of evil and restoration to relationship with God than it achieved by itself. Such deliverance was accomplished by Jesus Christ in his death and resurrection. So read Exodus expecting fresh insight into the truth that Jesus is your redemption. Immerse yourself in the drama as you would with any good story. Identify with the characters and the situations they face. Encounter your Redeemer, not an abstract religious concept, but a compassionate, powerful, steadfast, loving, and personal God who pursues and redeems his people. Let's look at 3 related themes of redemption enacted by the Exodus story: deliverance, ransom, and renewal. By considering each, we'll learn a bit more about what redemption involves and where it applies to our lives. We'll also get a survey of the Exodus story and get a feel for how it points forward to Christ. Redemption as deliverance. Deliverance is about movement from slavery to freedom, from bondage and sin to life and God. Redemption is synonymous with being liberated, freed, or rescued from bondage and slavery to a person or thing. Merriam-Webster dictionary defines slave as one that is completely subservient to a dominating influence. Whatever overcomes a person, to that he is enslaved, wrote the Apostle Peter. And John wrote, the whole world lies in the power of the evil one. Our enemy seeks to overwhelm us with the evil and take us captive. If you've been abused, you may relate to the metaphor of slavery, being overcome by evil, taken captive against your will, and plunged into a world of pain, confusion, and fear. The wounds of abuse can be dominating influences, complicating relationships with people, sometimes resulting in difficulty trusting others, preoccupation with others' approval, or feeling alone in the world. It can also result in a seemingly irresistible urge to grow bitter or seek revenge. If you've been addicted, you may also relate to the slavery metaphor. Your life has been out of control, dominated by the influence of the addiction. Perhaps, despite your desire to be free, you've gone back again and again to the addiction. It has cost you dearly, money, pain, relationships, and has left you in misery beneath a load of guilt and shame. This is slavery. Yet it's slavery you've chosen. It's voluntary slavery. In the opening chapters of Exodus, we find God's people in slavery. We are given no indication that they bear any blame for their condition. They have been overcome by evil, and his name is Pharaoh. God hears the cries of his people and remembers them. He then stretches out his mighty hand to crush Pharaoh and deliver his people. In the New Testament, we see that Jesus crushes our enemy, delivers us from slavery to sin, and ultimately overcomes the power of the evil one. So we're going to stop there for today. We move on and we talk about redemption as ransom and redemption as renewal in the upcoming study, which will go over tomorrow. But I really wanted to stop after that moment because I hope that you're able to see the connection between what we're learning in Exodus and how it applies to our addiction and recovery. And I thought that was really powerful, that if you've been addicted, you may also relate to the slavery metaphor. Your life has been out of control, dominated by the influence of the addiction. Perhaps despite your desire to be free, you've gone back again and again to the addiction. It has cost you dearly, money, pain, and relationships, and has left you in misery beneath a load of guilt and shame. This is slavery. So that's heavy, man. And as we get into these upcoming days, we're really going to take a close look, a hard look at ourselves and our addictions. And this is not going to be easy, you guys. I'm actually really stoked to be doing this right now with you too, because the last time that I read this was almost 3 years ago, because I'll be at 3 years kratom free next month. And I read this literally in my first couple months after quitting. I was in Exodus as I was quitting. And so I'm really stoked to be able to revisit this with you. And I'll tell you, recovery is amazing. Sobriety is amazing. But, the end of the work doesn't happen just because you're sober. And so I'm looking forward to doing this with you and taking a look at myself again at this point in my recovery. Because sure, I'm not ever going to use kratom again. That's not an issue. The active addiction is not the issue. But as I've gotten into recovery and I've gotten better and I've gotten stronger and I've gone back into the world by working full time, it's easy to get distracted. And, we live in the world, but we're not of it. And so when we get into latter parts of our recovery and we're feeling better, it's easy to get caught up in our schedules and our responsibilities and, different things that are going on. And so I'm looking forward to doing this study with you because the work never ends in recovery. And I don't want to say that to like scare you or anything, because it's rewarding work. It's the best work that you'll ever do in your life. And this is the kind of work that makes us better people. So today we're just doing this beginning of the unpacking of what these idols are in our lives and what the slavery of addiction is like. And I encourage you to let us know where you're at with that in the comment section below, or you're welcome to reach me directly about, how this is taking shape in your life. Has your kratom addiction become something that's unmanageable, and do you feel enslaved to it? And what's that like for you? And or have you quit and you're in the beginning of your recovery, or you're getting well into your recovery? What's it like to be on that side of it? So I encourage you to let us know how you're doing, and I'll see you tomorrow as we continue in Exodus. Love you guys. Bye.